Joining us right now on the Daily Dose, we are bringing back some friends of the Dose to check in on the NFL season and how it is going. You know, we did our preseason preview back in maybe August or September or whatever, and we said then, let's get together again at the midway point of the season and see how our predictions had done so far. Well, here we are. So let's introduce the members of our esteemed panel today. First up, we have Big Rob, West Virginia Mountaineer and Philadelphia Eagle fan, who is the sitting president of the Daly Dose I-Team. Welcome back to the Dose, Rob.
Good to be back. Always a pleasure.
Mike from Castle Rock has joined us a number of times to talk all things sports. Mike is, of course, trying to get through this Denver Broncos season. We don't know what to expect from one day to the next, but Mike, it looks like you're out on the range. You're roping some cattle or something. You got a good look.
Yeah, enjoying a fake scenery. It's a beautiful day back there.
You know what? It was a beautiful day in Denver in general.
It absolutely was.
We are in the fall, and you can't get much better than Denver in this time of year. Finally, we have the old pro and another Denver Broncos fan, Larry from Centennial returns. Larry, welcome back to the Dose. It is always fun to see you join. Larry's feeling good today.
Thank you, Clint. Always good to be here. Can't wait.
Hey, the 2021 NFL season is rolling along, gentlemen, and we are seeing a number of different stories emerge so far. You know, I want to drill down eventually on each team and kind of walk through each team, maybe look at some surprises, some disappointments, maybe hand out some season-end awards and that kind of thing. But first off, let's look at a few of the bigger things that have taken place so far in the NFL season. And you know what? Week 9 is a perfect example of how crazy things get in the NFL, because on any given Sunday, anything can happen. And we absolutely saw that this week in the NFL. But first off, after all the weirdness last year, we're seeing full stadiums back again this year. We're seeing a much more normal season again in 2021. I know every once in a while you'll have somebody out, you know, COVID or whatever, but for the most part, we're seeing more of a return to the normal. Who here has been to a game of some kind? Yep. Mike, Larry.
Yep.
Mike, you've been to Bronco games, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah.
How is the atmosphere at the game? Is it crazy like we thought it might be? Does it feel more normal?
You know, it's obviously the home opener, which was week 3. There was an air of excitement because of, you know, last year basically being non-existent for the fans.
Sure.
You know, obviously it's been kind of waning, but that's not necessarily that's mostly because of the product on the field, not necessarily because of the excitement. You know, the 16,000 no-shows at the last game. That's simply because of the product on the field, not necessarily because of anything else going on.
Sure. Larry, you've been to Bronco games too, I'm assuming.
Yep, been to a few of them. Yeah, I agree with Mike. It's really fun to get back into the stadium. You know, same old kind of. It is disappointing that the product is not better, especially at home. I mean, sure. You know, we had those games with, and I did not go to the Washington game, but I heard about it. It was a debacle at the end to try to give it away, right? And right. But that Raider game was brutal, you know. And you know, and even Baltimore, it was a winnable game. It's just, you know, the product wasn't there. So, but it's really fun to be back. The stadium, you know, we go through this at Denver anyway. With the weather, it's been super nice. So people have other things to do, you know. We do have a few no-shows, but you know, that's, you know, I think that happens all the time.
Rob, you haven't been to any games yet, but if I know you, you're probably planning on attending at least some college games or maybe some NFL games later in the season. What do you got on the agenda there?
Yeah, I plan on catching one. Picked up a weekend gig, and so just haven't been free on a Sunday. But again, like I can't wait to go. Have caught a couple of concerts. So just, you know, being around people again, that just excitement that you get, you know, definitely looking forward to it.
You know, I went to Colorado State's homecoming game. Obviously Colorado State is not the football, you know, powerhouse, but being in the stadium, bunch of kids and just the excitement there. And when the cannon gets fired and everybody jumps and just seeing a packed stadium. And I hadn't been up to Colorado State to their new stadium yet. The new stadium is really fun. It's a smaller venue, but it's really, really fun. There's not really a bad seat in the house. And so just getting back in there, getting that excitement, and you could really feel it that day, packed house and people going crazy. It's really, really fun to have that back. You know, prior to the season, we saw some new rules coming from the NFL. And I think the one that we have to talk about, the one that is affecting things the most, is that no taunting rule. I am hoping that the referees are just calling this early, that they'll taper it off and kind of back off the further into the season that we get. But anyone here a fan of the no taunting calls? I think we understand it. I just think sometimes we're asking a lot of these refs to have to call the no taunting stuff.
It's way too much of a judgment call.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That is my problem with it, is you're asking a ref to judge pass interference and watch the line of scrimmage and watch a hold and and also see if this guy, pointed and said something mean. Seriously, can we maybe not ask these 65-year-old elderly men to make this many calls? It just seems like a lot to me. I don't know. Don't they have enough to do?
They do. And it's inconsistent, right?
Yes, that's my problem.
And there's nothing right. Those the mics catch, some things going on here and there, but those guys are talking. I have a problem with it. But I'm reminded of the time Von Miller gave the guy the hand to help him up and then pulled it back. Right. And they flagged him 50
and they flagged him for it. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
some of this stuff is
silly.
Just, taken away from the fun of the game. I'm sure for the players, for sure.
Well, and Rob's a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Philadelphia will throw grenades at Santa Claus. So he knows what those kind of things are about. Like, Rob gets it. You understand that sometimes taunting is just part of the game, right?
Yeah, definitely part of the game. Like I said, I really don't see the point of the rule in the first place. I mean, little trash talk. I mean, I think everybody kind of enjoys that.
Yes.
Same with the touchdown celebrations. I mean, that's part of the game that, people enjoy, get hyped up for. So I don't like it.
I don't either. We saw some moves this past week at the trade deadline. The Los Angeles Rams made a deal for Denver Bronco linebacker Von Miller. The New Orleans Saints did not make a deal for a new quarterback, despite the fact that Jameis Winston went down with a knee injury. And the Tennessee Titans went out, and instead of making a big move to replace injured running back Derrick Henry, they decided that it is now 2007, and instead they signed running back Adrian Peterson. Mike, you were a fan of the Von Miller trade, maybe? How did you feel about the Von Miller trade?
You know what? Honestly, I think the timing was just about perfect for it. In years past, I might have been a little bit more upset as a fan, but on the business side of it, I think it made sense on both sides. He most likely wasn't going to be a Bronco in 2022 anyway.
Sure.
And, I think they got pretty good value out of him. So obviously the Rams are all in for this year. I don't think they have a first round pick till, I don't know, 21-20 or something like that.
It's a long ways out.
They're really, really digging in to get it done this year. So, I'm a Von Miller fan, and I'll root for him with the Rams. So
I will too. And I'm happy for the fact that he gets to go, chase a ring, and maybe he gets another chance at winning another one. It is interesting. You mentioned the Rams not having any picks. The Rams went and selected Jared Goff number 1 back in 2016. And then they're just like, if that's what a number 1 pick is, never mind. You guys just keep them. We don't even want number 1 picks anymore, because that's been a disaster. We're just going to trade every single pick after that. Larry, does Adrian Peterson have anything left to take over for Derrick Henry in Tennessee?
I don't know. I can't remember when he played last.
It's been a minute, hasn't it?
It's been a while. From what they say, he's in great shape, and I would expect nothing less. He was a man.
Yeah.
And I would think that he knew, or stayed in shape. Thinks there might have been the opportunity to play. So I'm rooting for him, actually. I hope he does well. Yeah. I think it'd be great. It'd be a great story to have him, be able to run the ball well. I like the guy. So I hope he does well.
Rob, one thing that didn't happen at the trade deadline that we all kind of wondered, no one pulled the trigger on Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. Why is no one making a move there?
I think still too many questions. I mean,
Yeah.
If you did trade for him and you get him, we still don't know what the NFL is actually going to do. Is he going to be able to play? And just, there's still so much surrounding that situation that, I would agree. I would stay away. The talent, he's obviously a talented quarterback, but you really don't know what you're getting.
No. And it's
Well,
really interesting to see this kind
They
of
had
take
a
place.
trade partner with Miami, right?
Sounded like Miami. It sounded like Carolina. It sounded like a few teams were very interested in Deshaun.
There were reports today that there were multiple teams that offered 3 first-round picks and just couldn't get it done. So I don't know what
They wanted guarantees in there, if he, right? And
Yeah.
so,
And
so
how can you possibly guarantee that?
you can't.
No. So that's, and let's be real clear. There's a lot of teams out there like the New Orleans Saints that I'm sure would love to get Deshaun Watson. They don't have a dime. Like, they have no money whatsoever. So they can't go make the move. There's a lot of teams in that same situation. They don't have any money. So sometimes the salary cap does restrict some of the things that you can do. Let's jump into our divisional recap so far at the midway point, and let's start in the AFC East, because right now the Buffalo Bills are sitting on top of the division. They look like at times they may be one of the top teams in the AFC, but sometimes they don't. Let's start off with those Bills. And, my biggest concern about Buffalo this year going into the season was that you went from no expectations now to a lot of expectations. And I really thought early on, those expectations were kind of giving them trouble. They lose to Pittsburgh in a game that honestly they dominated. On Sunday, we see them lose to Jacksonville in a game that I don't even know what happened there. Now, prior to the season, Mike and Larry and myself picked Buffalo to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
right.
Sometimes they look great. Sometimes they look really, really bad. Mike, Larry, are we feeling good about our Super Bowl pick right now? How do we feel about the Buffalo Bills?
Mike?
I'm still good with it. I think I'm going to keep it. They've had some bumps in the road, and sometimes those are actually good things. They're learning experiences.
Sure.
They're a pretty young team, and you learn while you're going. I still think they're a strong team. I'm still okay with that pick.
Yeah, I am too. Larry, are you still going with the Bills?
Yeah, I'm not going to change off that pick.
Okay.
I agree with Mike. I think the season is a long season.
Yep.
You learn, and that's what they're doing. They'll make it to the playoffs, and then, obviously anything can happen.
And I would really like to see them run the ball just a little bit. They can't run the ball very well. And when you've got Josh Allen, I get he's a superstar and I really love Josh Allen, but you're asking a lot of him when you don't run the ball effectively, and you've got to stop turning it over. They had 3 turnovers against Jacksonville. Those turnovers come back to bite you. It does make you wonder, is Buffalo that kind of team in the AFC? Maybe Buffalo is the only team that can beat Buffalo, but they've got to figure some things out here. Next up, we have the New England Patriots, who have been maybe a little better than expected. Bad news for all of us Patriot haters, but their defense is playing pretty well. And rookie quarterback Mac Jones is improving. The problem for the Patriots, again, they really struggle to run the football. That can be problematic for a young guy like Mac Jones. It would be great if he had a running back there. They don't have a ton of skill position talent on that roster. They've made some really bad personnel moves over the last, 4 or 5 years. Larry, you are the only one on this panel who picked the Patriots to make the playoffs. Do you think the New England Patriots can still get in?
Yeah, I do. I think it's evidenced by what they're doing. I think Belichick is still a good coach, right? He may not have Brady, but he's still a damn good coach.
Yep.
I think their schedule lines up pretty well. Yes, they have a couple, tough games, but yeah, I think it's kind of proven that they're going to be in games, and if they can win, close ones, which they're, they do.
Yeah.
Again, Belichick knows how to win those games. Then I think so. And I would still say they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're playing really well. And if Mac Jones continues to improve, they're going to be tough to beat down the stretch. The New York Jets were finally feeling a little bit of positivity going into the season. They had a new head coach. They had brand new rookie quarterback. Zach Wilson was going to be the guy to turn this around. And then the game started. All that excitement went right out the window. Zach Wilson has looked mostly terrible. He is now out with a knee injury. And the backups that have come in have actually looked better than he ever did. Rob, when Zach Wilson comes back, is this his team? Or are the Jets going to look at one of these other guys? Because Mike White was looking real good before he got hurt.
Yeah. I don't think so. It's the Jets. I mean, who knows?
Accurate.
Yeah, whoever it is, I don't think it matters. I do have some questions about the coach. I mean, I like the hire in the beginning, but as we've seen it play out over the season, I'm not as confident, as I was early on. But I mean, they're kind of what we expected. It's still the Jets.
It is still the Jets, and they're not very good. I'll give them this for Robert Saleh. It seems like they play hard. They're just not very good. And especially when you're getting terrible quarterback play and you're getting a lot of turnovers and that kind of thing, it's really, really tough. Yeah, you said it right there, though. It's the Jets. Who knows what in the world they're going to do. They might have a bizarre quarterback controversy. Finally, in the AFC East, we have the Miami Dolphins, who are honestly in the running for the disappointment of the year right now. The Dolphins were looking like they were on the edge of becoming like a playoff team. The defense was really good last year. They just need some solid quarterback play this year. And if their offense doesn't kill them, maybe they could be a playoff team. Well, instead, the defense took a huge step backward. The offense still stinks. The jury is still out on quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And this team is one of the worst teams in the NFL, and it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Mike, you picked the Dolphins to make the postseason. I nearly picked the Dolphins. I had them down and talked myself out of it, but this is a mess. Is there any reason for hope for the Dolphins this year?
It doesn't look good. The way they finished last year, you didn't want to play them last year at the end of the season.
No,
they're playing so hard. I mean, trading so many players away, second and third string guys getting their chances, playing their butts off for the coach. I just thought it was going to come together and culminate into something this year, and it just has not materialized. I don't know. I don't see the same thing that happened last year happening this year. I think they're looking at a top 3 pick.
I think they are too. And I mean, maybe they finally go out and get their quarterback, but again, then you're looking at, okay, well, I guess we try another quarterback. And you do wonder when that cycle finally ends. It looks like in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills should roll to the division. I think the Patriots are in the hunt for a wild card spot. They're right there. But the AFC East looks like that's pretty much settled. We'll see if anybody else surprises us. Next up is the NFC East, which was dreadful last season. The Washington football team won the division with a 7-9 record. So far, it looks like we could have a new champion, though. In first place, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who we thought would be good offensively. They are good offensively, except for when they play a certain team. But the defense has been a little better than expected, again, until they played another team this past Sunday. I'm not sure the Cowboys are truly a contender, but that offense is very, very explosive. They can score points. Up until this past Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys were averaging over 30 points per game. However, on Sunday, we may have seen the blueprint for beating the Cowboys, run the ball down their throat. Larry, you are the lone member on this panel who predicted the Cowboys were going to make the playoffs. You got to be feeling pretty good about that pick. They're in good shape for that, but the Cowboys still have some issues, don't they?
They do. And, I don't even know what to say about today, because I think it was a product of the Broncos playing really well, like best game of the season, right? Sure. On the road. But, Dallas Cowboys probably overlooked them a little bit.
Yep.
Now, the Cowboys schedule hasn't been really hard,
not at all.
right? So I think, there's a lot in that 40 points a game that, you can probably, kind of reason out. But yeah, I mean, look at the rest of the division. I think they're probably still the best team, and I don't think they'll have a problem. And they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the division, and that's that.
Yeah, I think they're in good shape. You bring up a really good point, though, about Dallas overlooking the Broncos on Sunday. Mm-hmm. The first 2 drives, Dallas drives right down the field. They get to a 4th down. If they're playing the Packers, they kick those field goals and they take those points. Against Denver, they're like, we're going to blow this team out, so it doesn't matter. You had one team trying to blow another team out in the NFL, which one is really difficult to do. We kind of overlook that sometimes. And two, you had another team that said, oh, we got rid of Von Miller, so we're garbage now. You had a perfect storm brewing for those Cowboys that bit them hard on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was super apparent that they were not taking the Broncos seriously.
No.
Those fourth downs, just kept going for them. Like,
like his preseason.
Yeah, exactly. And the Broncos played a really good game.
Played a really good game and finally ran the football. But I'm wondering, is that the way you beat out? Run between the tackles, smash up in there.
Yeah, I don't know about Dallas's defense, and I think that is kind of really the wild card, right? So we'll see next week if they actually did learn anything and come back, a little tougher, right?
Sure.
They got work today.
Yes,
and I don't know if he was still feeling effects from his injury or the week off or whatever, but Dak was off.
He was horrible.
He was not good.
And he didn't get any
help. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play.
Yes.
Missing wide open receivers. Yep. There were a couple drops.
Few drops that they didn't help him.
They were not in that game.
And they were unable to protect him very consistently too. No, the Cowboys have some problems.
Yeah.
It's not all gravy.
No, they go to Atlanta next week, and I know Atlanta won, but if they don't look good at Atlanta, that tells us, more, I think, than we know today.
For sure. The rest of the NFC East is really struggling, but next up is the Philadelphia Eagles, who I absolutely still cannot figure out. They beat up on bad teams like Atlanta and Detroit, and I mean, they blow them out, but they'll beat the Panthers. They'll play the Chargers really, really close. They battle the good teams. They almost win, but they fall just short. Rob is our Philadelphia representative here. Rob, can you explain this team at all? Because they're really good on the ground. They're not very good at passing the ball. The defense is pretty middle of the pack. I can't figure out the Philadelphia Eagles at all.
Yeah, I'm going to say coaching is the problem. Like I said, talent's there. I think early on, we just really didn't have an identity. I don't think we played to the strengths of Hurts. And it just feels like we don't know what we're doing. Like I said, I'm going to put this on the coaching and the leadership. It's just not they're just not consistent. Like they're just not, I don't know. It's just not clicking. I think the talent is there. Or they have enough talent. And like I said, like you mentioned, I think that's why they are in games. They can hang with the top teams, but, it just ends up, falling apart.
They are going to be really interesting to watch down the stretch, because if they could figure some things out and they could play to Jalen Hurts' strength, maybe they could sneak in. Maybe they could slip and give the Cowboys some problems or slip through and maybe sneak in for a playoff spot. That's not a team without talent. Like you said, it seems like a team without direction, and they're kind of not sure exactly who they are.
I think it's so hard to come back from, 3 wins.
Yeah.
Right. They're 3-6. I guess kind of to your point, Clint, there's a lot of bad NFC teams. So
there are.
If they can get on a roll, then maybe they got something going. But man, can you imagine 3-6 and then feel like you have, that you're going to put it all together
right
for the second half of the season?
For sure. We move next to the New York Giants, another team that is not very good, but they seem like they're kind of figuring some things out lately. They've been really, really banged up with injuries. Running back Saquon Barkley, he's got that bad ankle. You wonder if that's just his story every year, if he's just a guy that just gets hurt a lot. The defense has been bad, but it's getting better. They can't get quarterback pressure, which is a problem. The offensive line isn't very good. Quarterback Daniel Jones is getting beat up yet again. And remember, when they had that top draft pick in the first round, they went after a wide receiver in Kadarius Toney, who's really explosive, but they needed to address that offensive line. My question for this franchise has to be, when does Daniel Jones just leave? Because I know there's some ability with Daniel Jones. You can see he's not a guy without talent, but man, he gets beat up a lot. Anybody have anything on the Giants or Daniel Jones?
That's tough. I don't know.
Yeah. And none of us had them making the playoffs. We kind of expected this was where they would be, but and to be fair, this past Sunday they go out and they slipped by the Raiders, so they seem to be improving.
And they almost beat the Chiefs.
They did almost beat the Chiefs and should have beat the Chiefs.
Yes.
Yeah, they're playing hard. It seems like they're getting a little bit better. So, good for the Giants, I guess. We move next to another disappointment. The Washington football team made the playoffs last year, albeit with a under 500 record. But I really liked their defense going into this season. 3 of us, Mike, myself, Rob, we picked Washington to get back to the playoffs, basically just by default with the rest of the division. Unfortunately, pass rusher Chase Young, he's been MIA most of the year. And as a result, they have a really poor pass rush. Their secondary is getting lit up every week. Now, quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was lost for the season back in week 1. So now it's Taylor Heineke's job. He's not doing a whole lot with it. Mike, we saw this team last week. You saw them, in person. They're not very good.
No. That's you prefaced it when you started talking about them. One of the biggest, to me, disappointments of the year is that defense.
That defense.
It was looking like a top 5 defense easy. In another year under Chase Young's belt and learning and they're just not producing at all. And Heineke, he's kind of a good story type of guy. I don't know if he's the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of help that's needed out there in Washington.
Yeah,
and not to mention the whole front office.
And that's a mess, and that could get really, really ugly before it gets any better. But I'm wondering how much is going to come out and where that's going to go. But just on the field stuff, like you said, Heineke's a great story. He's a scrappy kid. They're just not very good. And man, we watched them last week. Denver tried to give them that game multiple times, and they refused to take it. They're like, no, we're all set here. I just can't believe how bad that defense is. Rob, what happened to Chase Young? Is something wrong with him?
I don't know, or if it's like you said, just the culture there. Just
could be.
He is just one player on the defense. And like you guys mentioned already, I mean that was the strength. The defense had to play up. You were kind of patch it together with Fitz, and then once Fitz is gone, now you don't have a quarterback, and just the defense can't handle all the pressure.
Yeah, it looks.
Is Patrick ever really the answer? Right?
No, he's always a Band-Aid for like a week or two.
For every team he goes to.
Yes.
Yeah, they're 2-6. They're going nowhere.
Yeah. Dallas should easily win this division. We'll see if maybe someone like the Giants or Philly could maybe make a little bit of noise because, like Larry mentioned, the rest of the conference, they've got some losing teams over there. So there's a chance for them, but Dallas should stroll to this win. Let's move to a division that we thought would be competitive. And it's really, really competitive because every team in the AFC North legitimately has a chance to make the postseason. We start with the Baltimore Ravens, who have been hit really hard by injuries, but quarterback Lamar Jackson, he makes them a contender because the Ravens can score with anyone. Unfortunately, they can't always stop anyone. When the Ravens lose, they usually get torched through the air. Lamar's good, but he can't play defense too. Rob, how big of a believer should we be in the Ravens this year?
I'm still a believer.
Too.
I know they have, they've had some last minute wins, victories, but it's not the kind, it doesn't feel lucky to me. I mean, it feels almost, I don't want to see I don't want to say a team of destiny, but it does feel like, there's something there. And kind of like we talked about the first time, Lamar's been a little bit better with the passing. Marquise Brown has come around a little bit, which I still think is the key. I mean, I still think they'll be able to run the ball. They've had a ton of injuries at running back, but they can still move it on the ground. And if Lamar can throw, or, if it's in a game and he's on and he's, connecting with his passes, they're still dangerous, I think.
They are dangerous. And you bring up a good point in how good they run the ball. They're running the ball hides some of the things they don't do so well. And sometimes it hides that defense because sometimes that defense, especially in the passing game, isn't as strong, but because of what Lamar can do, they can still be very, very sneaky.
That's a philosophy too, because name their starting running backs from the preseason.
Who knows?
And we're talking about they've had several miracle comeback win. But good teams find a way to win those games.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they absolutely do, and they are finding ways to win. And they won another this past Sunday. Going right down to the wire with Minnesota and finding a way again to eke out a win. The Pittsburgh Steelers are up next, and they're a team that I'm kind of struggling to figure out. They beat the Bills. It was kind of fluky, but they did it. They beat the Browns. Again, kind of seemed a little bit weird. They don't seem to be able to beat the really good teams, though. Ben Roethlisberger Doesn't seem like he's able to throw the ball more than like 10 or 15 yards. Now, Rob, you were the lone member of the panel to pick the Steelers to make the playoffs. Are you confident in Pittsburgh getting in? Do you think Pittsburgh can still do this?
I'm not confident, but I think they may still get in. Kind of like you mentioned, Roethlisberger, I think, is the problem. Feels a little Drew Breesy, just where the arm is going. It's not ready, to admit that it might be time. But it's, it's still it's a tough team. I mean, it's the Steelers, so they're going to be in every game. They're going to come to play. So they might sneak in, but if they do, it'll be despite Roethlisberger.
Yeah, because there's only so much you can do to hide what he can't do. The defensive backs know you can't throw it back here. I can cheat up all I want. You don't have the arm to get it this far. So, yeah, I think the Steelers are a good middle of the road team, like a lot of these teams are. But if they play the big dogs, I just don't see how they can possibly eke out a win. Next up is the Cleveland Browns, who have been a little bit of a disappointment, at least to me, because we were kind of thinking maybe Cleveland was going to be a contender this year. There's a lot of talent. Right now, they're just hoping to get into the playoffs. I'm starting to have some concerns about this team because they look good on paper. They don't always show it on the field. I kind of wonder if they have like an identity problem. Like Baker Mayfield, he's coming from Oklahoma. He thinks he's going to be this passer. He's going to fire the ball over. Just run the ball. Just give the ball to Nick Chubb and get out of the way. Stop trying to do that kind of nonsense. This last Sunday, they go out and everything works against the Cincinnati Bengals. They get a big win. Larry, now the Browns are dumping wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Will that fix him? Was that the problem?
Well, it certainly did on Sunday.
Yes, it did.
Baker Mayfield played better. Chubb is back in the lineup.
Yeah, that helps.
Right. He was out for a while. The defense, I think, played better. I mean, Cincinnati's no joke, right? They've proven up to this point. And so I think that was a big win. But, your earlier point is, this is a congested division.
Very.
Yeah. So, but I think Cleveland's on to something. I think they'll probably trend up. And I don't think it hurts them to have Odell Beckham Jr. leave.
I don't either.
I don't know what happened. I don't know that anybody knows what happened except for the fact that, the dad sent a video that showed Baker Mayfield, not throwing to him. Your classic wide receiver, diva type stuff. So I don't think it hurts them not to have him on the team. And with a great running game, I think they're in it. I mean, they're one game behind Baltimore. So, they got a shot.
Yeah, they should be right there. And we'll see if they can kind of get this going. And maybe, it's just addition by subtraction, getting rid of Beckham. The Cincinnati Bengals are one of those teams that has kind of surprised us because after they lost quarterback Joe Burrow last year to an injury, he's back this year. He's playing well at times because sometimes the Bengals look really good offensively. Other times they're really, really inconsistent. They go into Baltimore. They beat the Ravens. They lose on Sunday in a game to Cleveland that really wasn't even that close. Mike, I know that we're both really big on quarterback Joe Burrow. Are the Bengals a contender for the postseason? I know they're not a Super Bowl contender, but can they keep Burrow healthy this year and make it into the playoffs?
I think they may be 1 year away, and we keep harping on this, but with those 4 teams in there, I give them the 4th best shot of making the playoffs. And I just don't know if they can leap one of those other teams in there. Maybe Pittsburgh, if they start to slip a little bit, but Pittsburgh has such a strong defense. I don't know. That they may just be a victim of being in a really good division. Think they can win 7, 8, maybe even 9 games, making the playoffs. I just don't think it'll happen. I think they'll fall just short.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking too. And the thing about being in that tough division, it's really cool because it tests you and you find out, are we really that good? It also beats the crap out of you. And sometimes you don't have anything left as you come down the stretch. And, as good as Cincinnati has looked, Joe Burrow is still getting hit. They didn't address that offensive line probably as much as they should have. And I love what Jamar Chase has done this year, but he's still taking a lot of hits. And I'm really hoping that they can keep him healthy and that he can actually make it through the season. I think the Ravens should win this division, but it's tough. They're going to get beat up. We're going to see if they can hold on. We're going to see if the Browns or the Steelers can make a run at this. The North is going to be really, really fun to watch. Let's move over to the NFC North, where we have some really interesting things happening. because this was starting to look like a runaway. I think it's still going to be a runaway, but it might get interesting because the Green Bay Packers are on top of the NFC North. They were looking like the best team in the NFC. Aaron Rodgers is just so good. He's one of those guys that just lives to spite people, and he's petty, and he loves proving people wrong. After starting the season with that horrible blowout loss, the Pack have been on fire. However, Aaron messed up. He comes down with COVID. Now there's a big controversy about whether or not he got the vaccine, whatever. That's his deal. I don't really care. But Rob, the Packers are not the same team without Aaron Rodgers. We all picked the Packers to get into the playoffs. That's not the surprise. But with Aaron, they looked like the top team maybe in the conference. Should we even be surprised that Aaron Rodgers is that good anymore?
I don't think so. Like I said, he's been that guy for a long time. And, you know, we just talked about Roethlisberger, but Rodgers is the opposite. I mean, the arm strength is still there. You know, still commands, controls the feel. So, yeah, I mean, that's still the team by far.
Yeah, he's just so good. And I know that's a mess up there with that whole situation and him being out and missing time. And there's a lot of controversy, but when he is on the field, he is just so good. Really tough to pick against the Packers. And I'm guessing he's only going to miss maybe one more week. He might be back next week.
Possibly.
Yeah. And if that's the case, the Packers are going to be very, very tough. The Minnesota Vikings, they seem to just roll out the same idea every year. And they hope that this time maybe it'll work like it, you know, it never does, but they think it will. But the Vikings are at least in the hunt for a playoff spot. It just kind of seems like the same story. The offense is good when they protect quarterback Kirk Cousins. When they can't, the offense is terrible. The defense is very middle of the pack. So Kirk Cousins has to carry this team a little bit. Mike, you are the only one here who picked the Vikings as a playoff team. Do you think Kirk Cousins is going to prove he is able to carry that team into the postseason?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Can they protect him? You know, he's a very good, not great. He's a very good quarterback when he gets the protection.
Yes,
he's got talent around him.
Yep.
You know, they've beat some good teams. They took Baltimore to overtime today. You know, they're in the games.
Yeah.
I not as confident, but I think they can still. I think I give them a shot to make the playoffs still.
Yeah, they're at least going to be in the hunt. You do wonder at one point, does Kirk Cousins really start earning that paycheck? Because you're getting paid a lot of money. Can you lead this team that, like you said, has some offensive tools? They've got some talent.
Yeah, well, and losing Danielle Hunter hurts too.
Yeah, and that offensive line just is not great. They haven't, restocked it like they probably should have. The Vikings are going to be in it, but there's another team in that division that is also going to be in it. Let's talk about the next, because the Chicago Bears started the season with Andy Dalton. People were kind of, let's see how that goes. But Bears fans were so excited when he went down with that injury and rookie Justin Fields came on. But this isn't the Big Ten, kids, because Fields is taking some lumps. The Bears offense is one of the worst in the league in every single category. And the problem is then you're asking a lot of that defense, which is a good defense, but you're asking a lot of them. If they have a bad week, if they make a mistake, it really, really looks bad. I was the only one on the panel to pick the Bears to make the postseason, so I have to answer for my sins right now. I thought Dalton, honestly, would last more than week 3 is the biggest problem. I thought he would be in there for a while. Maybe they could win some games. But I'm thinking head coach Matt Nagy, it's got to be red hot, because they need to show some signs of getting better and that Justin Fields might be the guy. If they don't show that, I think Nagy's out of a job and someone else is going to have to come in and kind of reshuffle that deck. I think they're in the hunt, but you're asking a lot of a really, really young guy, and you're asking him to do it in a town that is traditionally so hard on their quarterbacks. We finish up the NFC North with the Detroit Lions. Hey, I like the Lions. I'll be honest, I do. They play hard. They grind. They work, and they are awful. This team really, really suffers from a lack of talent. It is evident. Head coach Dan Campbell, he's getting these schlubs to play hard at least. Larry, I know you have a soft spot in your heart for those Detroit Lions. Do you like what you see? Do you like what the Lions are doing? Or if you're Jared Goff, are you trying to step in front of a bus every chance you get?
I think you are. I really, haven't we said this about the Lions for years, man? They just play really hard and they just can't pull it together. And this season is no different. I mean, they're over. Like, if there's one thing you can count on, right, is Detroit just not winning ball games. I mean, they're on this path right now. I'm looking at the schedule. Could they be the only team that didn't win a game 2 seasons?
Maybe. They're really bad, and they don't have any
they are.
talent.
I know they are. They traded their best player away.
Yeah.
They have a coach who's a rah-rah guy.
Yeah.
I get it. They'll play hard, but they just might not be very good.
Yeah,
They
not.
aren't very good. I'm putting the jinx on it. They'll probably beat Denver and go 1-16.
Well, here's some more good news, because Thanksgiving's coming. So we're going to get to see them in all their glory on national TV as they roll out that national game against, who knows, somebody probably just as awful. Every
Chicago.
year we have to see, is that who it is at Chicago? Oh,
Yeah.
That is a putrid game. Make sure you start your meal on Thanksgiving a little early and don't have to watch that garbage. Can we please shuffle some new blood in on Thanksgiving with Detroit? It's just painful. It's so bad. And I'll give them credit. Usually on Thanksgiving they lose, but they kind of play tough at least. And I'm sure they will again this year.
They're one national game.
Yes, it's that one game. They'll lose. They'll kind of play good for a while. And Jared Goff will once again break that wishbone and just pray he'll get hit by a taxi tomorrow, because that has got to be absolutely brutal to play for the Detroit Lions. There's not a whole lot of sunshine coming up in your world. Gentlemen, we have finished the first half of our 2021 NFL midseason report, but we still have a lot to get to, because we have yet to get to the AFC and NFC South and the AFC and NFC West. Those are both some pretty competitive divisions. And I also want to get your thoughts on, maybe your pick for the MVP, Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, that kind of thing, Coach of the Year, surprises and disappointments that you might have. And then we are going to recap and take a look at our picks for Super Bowl 56. I'm going to give you guys a chance. If you want a mulligan, if you want a do-over, I'm going to let you have a chance to do a do-over. Everybody up to join us again next week on the Dose, and we can run this back and get to those other divisions and get to the midseason awards.
Oh, yes.
Everybody's good. Thank you guys very much. As usual, I appreciate y'all being here. The NFL season has been unpredictable as usual and really, really exciting as usual, but I'm looking forward to having you guys back next week, and we will jump back in to our midseason review.
Clint, thank you.